So we're going to have to share and pass it up and down. So most of the people don't know you, so the point really is to get to know you rather than to grill you and ask deep questions that are unrealistic as to your, because most of you I think are starting except for Nick Pashota. So I will start by just asking you a quick question. How long have you lived here permanently? Visiting doesn't count. How long have you been a permanent resident? State your name, and please tell us what motivated you to run for office. Keeping in mind that the Gettysburg Address was 272 words and lasted 2 minutes, and is known as one of the greatest speeches ever given. So we're going to start with you. Please state your name, how long have you lived here, what motivated you to run for office, and then just pass it on.
Thank you very much, Nancy. I'm Ron Smith, and I first moved to Venice in 1981 to become the local editor of the Sarasota Herald Tribune. I have actually lived in Venice only about 12 years over the time period since then. My work as a prosecuting attorney for the state moved me around. I prosecuted in Charlotte County, in Collier County, in Lee County, in DeSoto County, and in Hendry County. My work at the newspaper moved me around. And so I have come back 3 times, have owned homes here on 3 different occasions. But I haven't lived here continuously all that time. I love this city. My daughter was born at the Venice hospital that closed today. That's sad for me. My wife is buried here. I lost her in 2020. She's well known here. She was a quilter and a very active member of the quilting community and well received. I'm running for office because I want to solve problems and I want to preserve this paradise that we live in. There are really many big reasons for that, but as a local editor of the newspaper, I had the opportunity to research, write, and oversee hundreds of articles about the history of our city. And I do love the history of our city, and I want to try to preserve it. I'll fight for the historic buildings in the city, and I don't want to be stuck in traffic in and around high-rise buildings. That's why I'm running for the city council. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Rick Howard. I'm a Florida native. I was born in Fort Myers, and my family is generations deep in the state of Florida and Southwest Florida specifically. As I've been meeting folks around in the city, they say that they know 1 or 2, I'm like 1 or 2 what? They said Floridians. We're still here, we're just diluted. I've been in Venice, we've owned property in Venice for years. We permanently moved here 2 years ago. My wife is a retired school psychologist, and we have 3 daughters, 1 dog. I'm a retired senior business executive in the healthcare profession. I managed a $500 million budget, 1,200 employees across 4 states. Prior to that, I was a paramedic for Lee County EMS, where I spent almost a decade in the beginning of my career. I think that the city's facing a lot of issues, that I want to be part of that solution. I think that anybody that you talk to that had not heard the word building heights or LDRs doesn't get out much. That's an issue with all of us. If you query this entire room, nobody would say they want that. I certainly don't want it. So I feel like that my business background.
We don't want your entire speech. Just what motivated you to run the
Yes, ma'am. What motivated me to run? I care about this city. It's our home, and I want to make sure that we do everything to preserve the charm of the city. Thank you.
Frankie Abbruzzino. I moved here about 40 years ago in 1982. I used to actually play with Jamie, Mark, and Brian when I lived in Pine Brook. So I've been here for a long time, graduated from Venice High School, went off in the Navy, college, and all that stuff. Run a few small businesses right now. Most of you guys may know me from the Scoop. Many of you may hate me from the Scoop. Many of you may like me from it. The reason I'm running, there's a few reasons. Basically, I don't like seeing candidates going unopposed. And I do have different views on issues than my friend Nick here. And we are friends. I think we're friends. But I have different views from him. And I want to have my voice be heard, have others listen, and see if I can change some minds and if anything, bring attention to the issues that I find near and dear that I think are being ignored out there.
First of all, thank you all for being here. Nick Pashota, currently your vice mayor, running for mayor. I just have to tell you how much of an honor it is to be present with all of you guys. A lot of you have been mentors to me over the years. Moved here in 1987 with my family. Just like Frankie, moved away for a period of time to go to school, start my career, and then moved back. So I think roughly about 25 years total in Venice permanently. When I moved up to Orlando, Central Florida area, I wanted to be a police wife while I was teaching paramedic students in her ER, where she was a nurse. And we had discussed, wanting to move away from a lot of the crime of the big city and Central Florida and raise our kids where I grew up, which is Venice. So that brought us back here. Been back for roughly about 10 years working in the family business, and still doing a lot in disaster response. As many of you know, I did a lot of COVID response under the governor, and was fortunate enough to be on an elite team of people that developed a process to offer vaccinations for 27 million Floridians. So that segues into my motivation. I'm a public servant. I love to serve people. I love to solve problems, bring people together, and that's what I've been trying to do for the past 3 years, and that's what I want to continue to do as mayor.
I think we can all agree that traffic, growth, and affordable housing are problems here and everywhere else. We're going to start with Nick. Your family runs Fins and Sharkies and is taking an interesting turn on affordable housing. If you'll give 1 minute on the affordable housing that you're doing, and then I'd like to hear each candidate give us their ideas for how to make Venice an affordable place for our workers, nurses, doctors, everyone to work. And then we'll just go down.
So I was very fortunate. My family has been very, very family focused. We treat our employees just as if they are members of our family. Similar to the city, we have about 350 employees, which is right about where the city is. So we see this as not just a municipal issue. I mean, obviously we all know it's a national issue, but we feel like it's something that we need to tackle for our own staff. So what we've done over the years is as members of the family have passed away and such, we've taken on the housing that those individuals had, and we've turned that into housing for our employees. So we do not just seasonal housing, but we also try to find long-term solutions for employees who have been with us for a long time and are struggling with their rent and those kind of things. So oftentimes kind of transitional for them to segue into another type of housing and give them a mechanism to save some money. So currently we're approved for a apartment building, very similar to dormitory housing, and that's the kind of the start to the larger scale of workforce housing that we're trying to do. Because right now we're working with houses, and we wanted to do something that's a little bit more centrally located. It's right near our office, so we're going to do about 16 beds in that facility so that we have a place for people to live in, and it's close to where they're going to be working. In the future, we've also got some property in the county that we're looking at. We're trying to see what the national models are and how we can do our part on a local level. I mean, we're just one small cog in the wheel of everything going on here. So we've been trying to partner with other organizations, PGT, the hospitals, Truist, law enforcement community, whoever we can partner with to try to bring affordable housing for the workforce, so that when season comes, we can have people that actually can afford to live here and take care of us while we're living here for paradise. So.
Okay, affordable housing. I touch on this a lot. I get a lot of single mothers that write me and they can't afford to live anywhere within Venice. I see it all the time. Better wages would be great. That's one sticking point, but you need to have corporate partnerships. Basically, what they're doing out at the peer group, Turvis Tumblr, where the employers get involved and they go out and they try to help their employees. They maybe will buy a house and offer a discounted rent. That's a great option. Working with NGOs, like we just saw with Mike Miller's place, 10 cabins, I think, style houses. That's another great way. Habitat for Humanity. They couldn't get that property going out there in North Venice, so we said, okay, let's go ahead and sell it. You got 7 years. If you don't do anything with it, we're going to put the money in our Venice account. Boom. And you're trying to work with these different companies. You got community grants. You got various options out there. I don't know if we could pull off something like Mr. Hollick did a few years ago with the Venetian when he procured the grant money. I think it was about $500,000. I can't recall. But there are options out there, and continue to look at every option that's available. And again, better wages would be a nice thing. As a small business owner, I know that's very difficult, but it is part of the key.
I agree with both Nick and Frankie. Affordable housing is not, $1,700 a month. I've seen some of the projects. I've read about some of the projects in other parts of the state. They're talking about affordable housing. I think that the partnership with all the organizations that's been mentioned already, I think the county plays a role in this. How do we work with the county? Is there property out there where we can partner with different organizations to build affordable housing? I don't know, within the city limits of Venice, the property here is very expensive. I don't know where you would find property that the word affordable would be tied to it. But I think it's a huge issue, and I support whatever we can do to partner to provide that infrastructure or that support to provide housing for folks that can't afford it.
I was walking downtown going door to door, and one woman answered the door, a young mother, and she said to me, I was just approved for a $450,000 home loan, and I can't find a house to buy. I want to live in this general area. And I mean, that's the level of the problem that we've got. When I moved here several years ago, I was looking for a house in the price range of $300,000, and there was not a single house on the island of Venice for sale for under $300,000. This woman's telling me there's not one available for under $450,000. So it is a huge problem. We do have to work on it. I don't have all the answers. People keep giving me suggestions. Why don't we use that hospital property somehow, convert it into affordable housing, studio apartments? Somebody told me of the problem property on Avenue de Cirque, the West Bay Beach Resort, that's being vandalized. Vagrants have been living there. The city is really trying to fight and respond, putting cameras in there. Why can't that property, maybe the city can give some incentive to allow that to be resurrected as affordable housing. They're small units, more like a hotel. At any rate, I want to pursue whatever avenues we can to provide some relief in that area. I don't have all the answers.
Okay, continuing along with growth. Everyone, now that we're all here, would like to put the moat around and not let any new people in. So how would you handle growth, and do you support further annexation of the city of Venice? We only have about 25,000 people now. We're talking about affordable housing. All of this costs money. So do you support further annexation so you can have more taxpayers?
Okay, it's complicated. I met with the city planner, Roger Clark, and he was showing me there's already an agreement in place with the county to annex in 7 more areas. Essentially, the city's agreed it won't annex in any other areas, and the county's agreed you can annex these areas. We're already providing water and sewer service, in many of those areas. That's the incentive for them to be part of the city. I am not opposed to adding those things. They're all meant to make sense in terms of the areas that would become in the city. We have a very irregular boundary, as It looks like one of those congressional districts that's been gerrymandered, and it would round it out a little bit. It does make sense, the plan that's already in place. I'm sure Nick can talk about that. So I don't oppose the annexation of those areas that have been thought through in a comprehensive way, rather than helter-skelter, just adding any area that wants to come in. There's a plan, we need to follow it. I'm a huge fan of our comprehensive plan, and we need to follow it and not make changes for one developer, not make changes in the comprehensive plan for one landowner. We have to do this sensibly. And so I do agree with the current plans to bring in contiguous properties.
My opinion on that is very similar. I mean, just because you don't live in the city of Venice, you still use City of Venice services. You visit the beaches. There's no gate or fence around the city. So as development grows outside the city, which is a lot of it's going on right now, as we all know, those people are using the services, and it's so important that we have the dollars to support that through annexation. So your fire and your police are usually your first impacted by that, but it does stretch across all areas of the city: infrastructure, traffic, gridlock. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So I'm a big proponent of annexation, and I think the city could use the revenue to help pay for all these developments and keep the service levels for our residents high, and that costs dollars, and we're going to need more dollars from more residents through annexation to make that happen.
Annexation. It's actually not a bad thing. We get the tax dollars, and Ms. Dieter's County Commission doesn't. They're already using our roads, our services, and everything, so we get the tax dollars. It was something, I think it was Ed Martin that put together the original, that whole crew, Sue Lang and all those guys years ago. So yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing. What I don't like is when it comes to the LDRs, the comp plan, those are our two controlling mechanisms. I'm a licensed realtor. I'm not against development. A lot of people are like, oh, you want to stop all development. That's virtually impossible, and you cannot do it. I am for a controlled growth. I don't like taking an open area and let's make it commercial. I don't like going into a comp plan that was recently, I think three and a half years ago, it was completed the revision, and developers that helped revise it are now wanting to change the text on it so that they can double a neighborhood over in the Knights Trail area over there. So I'm for controlled development in that regard.
So my philosophy is all about smart growth. There is the joint planning agreement, the JPA, which is already pretty much fleshed out. I ran on this 3 years ago, and we were kind of looking at it, and there's not much more annexations to be done. The trick is that, especially with the new LDRs, when someone annexes in now, they have to do a comp plan amendment and rezone to current city zoning. So that's important. When we see a lot of these rezones, we think that we're changing things for developers and all that kind of stuff. We're actually bringing them into compliance with our city zoning. So that's very important, because we don't have an OUE zoning like the county does. Very similar to what everyone's saying, they are going to use our roads and our resources, so there's no reason not to take the tax dollars and bring that into the city when they're going to be right across the street anyway. So, I mean, it makes complete sense to annex in, especially within the JPA that's already been out there for many years. Comp plans come up every 7 years, and as we do this, we learn and we continue to improve it. So you look at our current LDRs, we have a new compatibility chapter in our LDRs that really kind of brings things together as far as keeping Venice more compatible with our development. And I'm really hopeful that a lot of people will see, now that we've put this into place, over time what it's capable of doing and how wonderful that document is.
Be thinking up questions. We're going to have some audience participation, so anybody with questions, we'll get to you in a minute. This 2 questions put into one. One of the first things I noticed when I moved to Venice is going over the middle bridge, the industrial park on the left. You're thinking, why didn't they make better use of this property? Are there any plans for that? And if you were the king of the world, what would be your plan for the hospital property?
Oh, if I only won the lottery. So as far as Seaboard area, you know, there are some plans. The city's been working very hard. We have to move our solid waste. You know, currently our city staff is working with the county to try to move our solid waste out to the northeast side and put it in a more compatible area with county solid waste. So once we've done that, we've kind of provided an opportunity for us to develop some green space, you know, parks and parking, and really help kind of push the Seaboard development along. So I think there's a lot of potential. I mean, you know, who's to say what we're going to see there in the next 20 years? I'm hopeful that it has some type of affordable workforce housing type of component that's compatible with the downtown area, and that we just see our beautiful downtown expanded into that area, and it just runs together. I mean, that was John Nolan's plan, was a walkable city. So I think that's really important that it ties to our downtown. Same with the hospital. You know, you look at that facility, and I think I read in the paper the other day that it's valued around $22 million. So I don't know if we're going to see affordable housing going to that facility, but there is definitely, you know, opportunity for something wonderful to happen, and I hope that we keep it compatible with our quaint, charming town. That's really, really important, and that's what we need to focus on, is making sure that whatever we do develop in those two areas, that it's compatible with what we currently have, and that we don't lose the charm of Venice.
Seaboard, if you guys remember, this is my third time, and I'm hoping it's a charm of running. And I mentioned, I believe, the last two times. In 2013, there was an article, it might have been my friend Earl that wrote it, about the bay, making it in the Venice Seaboard area into a little river walk, like Burlington. There is a committee, they're looking at the Seaboard. What are we going to do with it? You know, they made the first move where Joe Newender was able to secure a deal with the county, move the waste management out of there. So I don't mind change. Change is good. I'm a little worried with how the LDRs are, how that will impact the growth there. I don't know if I want a little river walk right there. Keep in mind, I'm someone that came here in '82, and I used to skateboard down Venice Avenue at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. There was no traffic, nothing, and I have the, I keep thinking back to the old days, and it's obviously not going to happen. We have to adjust with the change in the population that's moving in here. So I could see development happening out there. I think it's a long haul. I think you're looking at 20, 30 years, and I just want to make sure it's manageable. I don't know if I agree with this Riverwalk concept. Now, the other thing, the hospital, you know, there's a lot of issues with the hospital which really haven't been addressed with the closing. Development, I haven't really looked at that. I've been focused on the jobs, the economic impact. I own a medical company for over 20 years, so I'm looking at the insurance issues. If it's accepted at the hospital, if it's accepted at Sarasota Memorial, 30% of our EMS used to bring them to the hospital. Where are they going to bring them? So thinking about the development hasn't even entered my mind. I've had other issues to think about in regards to the hospital. I would say whichever builder goes there, it's a compatibility issue. I would think that if I were Venice Hospital, I would tear down the building for property tax reasons. But it depends. If they can sell it, I would assume a developer's going to try to get it and develop it. And as long as they follow the compatibility guidelines, the LDRs, the comp plan, then it's fine.
So I think I'm more in the John Nolan camp. The first time I ever drove across Venice Bridge, you go across the hump and you get that vision of Venice Avenue and the charm and what I call old Florida look and feel. I don't see what would be wrong coming the other direction across that bridge and seeing something very similar on the other side, an extension of Venice Avenue. The Seaboard area is it's an eyesore. I'm all about green space. I love the open space. Our trails where they run all over the city run right through there, right by there. So I am a proponent of that. To Nick's point, I met with the utilities folks and understand that they're looking to move the solid waste out of there. The hospital closing, the building near and dear to my heart. I've been in healthcare my entire life, and hospitals and health systems was my core. It bothers me that it closed just from an emergency care perspective. I care about the citizens getting inferior service. If something's wrong with you, that you call an ambulance. There's even levels of that. And if something's really wrong with you, every minute and every second counts. So I'm concerned, and that really wasn't totally the question, but I just wanted to get that in there because it bothers me that more the emergency room and the fact that Sarasota Memorial has been full today since they opened it. The building's been around for 60 years. It's got new renovations, etc. Apartments, I don't think that would work because of the way the rooms are designed. It's designed for maybe a skilled nursing facility. You might be able to repurpose it. Maybe long-term acute care facilities might be an application there. It's not going to take the 300 plus beds that are in that building, but I think it could. It's just an option to consider. Obviously, we don't own the building. We don't know what the owners are going to do with it, but it's definitely a big concern.
Certainly the owners of the hospital property are going to have the most say in what's done with that property. It is zoned to allow an infinite amount of things, and they're going to have some say. If I were king, as Nancy said, I think I'd like to see it as a long-term care facility of some sort so that the health care continues there on the island and on that property. It seems like it could be used that way. There does, I was sad to see that Sarasota Memorial and the owners of that hospital could not come to an agreement to continue emergency services. I would love to mediate that discussion and see why anyone would want to leave it vacant when they could be providing at least that much service right now. That's a shame. That's something I hope the city will try to negotiate with them while we wait to see what's going to happen to that property. On the Seaboard property, I'm very worried about the building heights. I don't want to see a wind tunnel along Venice Avenue leading into our beautiful downtown. At the very least, any taller buildings need to be back from the road so that you can have a beautiful ride into Venice all the way from out at the interstate. The only way those tall buildings are going to be built is with special exceptions given by the city council, because the building heights are limited, but there are special exceptions. My view of special exceptions is this: they're for special things. One example is the city council made a good decision to give a special exception when the Venice Little Theater came along and said, we need to go a little higher than the limit because of our stage needs and our lighting needs and our balcony and all that. Well, it was granted, and that's the tallest building in that area. It deserves to be, because it was for the benefit of the entire city. It was special. A special exception for the benefit of one property owner or one landowner to benefit himself is not special, and they shouldn't be given a special exception. But that's what's going to control what happens over there in Seaboard is the city council. And let's make sure that we respect all the property owners around there when we make those decisions.
Okay, I was just about to give you an opportunity to make a passion plea, as you just did, so you might want to shorten your next answer. This question is, you know, in politics we have an expression, pick the hill you want to die on. So far I'm encouraged by all of you candidates, and I would hire any one of you at the wonderful salary of $10,000 with no benefits. You're all worth it. Every one of you, just great. So I would like you to tell me, if you win, what is your passion, which you kind of already did, but pick the same one or another one, but what's the hill you would die on and fight to the death to preserve about our city of Venice, because I do believe we all care, and what is the issue you would like to change? So what would you fight to keep, and what would you fight to change?
Thank you. I will try a different topic for that one. I want to preserve the neighborhoods. I want to defend the neighborhoods, not just the downtown neighborhoods, but the central core to the northern subdivision neighborhoods. They're all under pressure from growth, whether it's the building heights, but also the speedways through the neighborhoods and the commercial encroachment on subdivisions. So that's the hill I'll die on, is fighting for the neighborhood, okay? What would I change? Planned unit development problem. Planned unit developments are a good idea, but they're being abused. They're being abused, and here's how. I'll try to do it real quick. You come in with a plan. The city approves it. The developer then sells all the homes, but he still has the right to come in and amend his plan after people have bought the houses, and the people who bought the houses have no say in the change that gets approved. That shouldn't happen. We need to change it so that once you've sold houses, the residents who have moved in on a promise of a golf course here in Bird Bay or the promise of some open space here in Milano don't then see a developer 10 years later still come in because of the way the PUDs are set up. It's separate from the zoning regulations, and say, oh, I want to make a little change here. I'm going to add a grocery store here, or I am going to build more where the golf course is. It's appalling that they could even ask. People have bought a place based on the idea that they have a view of a golf course. They've been promised it'll be open space forever, and yet the developer has the ability to come and ask for a change without any consultation of the ownership. And one developer says, I can get whatever I want from the city council. So that can't stand. We need to change the regulations so that can't happen without a vote of the owners once the property has been developed. Thank you.
Wow. There's a lot of hills I would die on, but I think preserving the quality of our city, it touches on all of them. It's the charm, it's the public safety, infrastructure, beach, parks, all of that stuff. We can't ever put our environment on autopilot. It won't work, it won't survive. You're gonna have all of these balls in the air. I mean, that's why people come to Venice. It's for our environment. They come here to beach or bike or hike or whatever. I mean, we're nature's trail over here. It's very environmentally friendly community that we need to sustain for generations to come. So that's the hill that I would die on. I think that the thing that I would change is how we communicate with the residents. I don't know if it's more workshops. I don't know if it's social media. I don't know if it's text messages. There's a lot of building height and LDR and development and growth and cities and commercial land or not commercial land. That's all up, I think, to the citizens to help the council decide. It should be a one-to-one relationship or 1-to-7 relationship, so that the citizens are communicating with those members on council to make sure we understand what the citizens are looking for. We are your eyes, ears, and hands, and we work for you. So I think that if I could change anything, it's we need to communicate better with our residents.
One big hill is something that I used to drive Mr. Hollick mad on, Mr. Daniels, and today Mr. Ed Lavelle, and it's on the outfalls. I've been surfing here since the early 80s. I've had 2 cuts, 2 infections, $20,000 later, and it's because of a lot of the water and how it is. I've taken videos in these outflows. They were highly polluted, and that was validated. Today I was talking to him about how we took around Venice Avenue by the Ogano's home, and we rerouted it. And we don't really have the beach closures there anymore, if you notice, but we still have them out at Sharky's and Dog Beach. So I was asking, can we do that there? What is the cost and those variables? And this has always been a hot button issue for me for years. I've been a pain in the butt sometimes with it. The other thing is on the, I stand with Ron over there on the development. I see a lot of change in the PUDs, the zoning, whatever you want to call it, where you will see a developer come in and automatically want to change it, and he'll get his way. I think we have a pretty pro-growth planning and zoning department within the city. I think the citizens don't have the access that the developers' attorneys and sometimes the developers have, and I would just like to see them have equal access. I think that access issue is what got us into this whole LDR mess with the petition that's going around right now. I've talked to them thoroughly. I've written a story about it. you know, a lot of it is we need more public involvement. I know when there was the 2 Rush public workshops, I wasn't even here, so I couldn't attend them if I wanted to. And if you remember the earlier revisions, there was a lot more public input. The city will say, well, we had planning commission meetings. Yeah, good luck seeing people at those. I watch every one of these meetings, you guys. There's not a lot of involvement. You have work, you have kids, you have a life, you have things you got to do that are more important. So those are the 2 hills. I know you asked for one.
No, I said keep and change.
I have no clue how I'm going to pick one hill to die on, but you know, I will say that this is home, okay, and I'm going to do everything I can to protect home. So one of the things that comes to mind when we talk about a hill to die on is when I was a kid, I was driving around town with then it was Chief Hanks, and he was telling me one of the fortunate things he had about being a chief here in Venice was he has a great staff, a very supportive government behind him that provides him the funding for his staff, and that we have a 0 crime rate. And that stuck with me for the rest of my life as I moved up to Orlando and saw, I mean, crime everywhere. Gunshot victims were a normal thing in my routine as a paramedic. We don't have that here. So obviously with my public safety background, that's really where I feel, you know, the strongest, is that providing the support that the public servants of our community need is just, that's paramount. Giving them the equipment that makes their job easier, that reduces the stress that they have in a job that's always going to be stressful. Making sure that we fund them so that we don't have a crime rate. I mean, that's really, really important, and that's really one of my biggest advocacies is for public safety. Aside from that, you know, doing the best we can to preserve the charm. I mean, I love the West Coast. I've been a diver. I'm with the Reef Rovers as one of their vice presidents, and the work that those volunteers, Bill Wilson and those folks did to provide us an organization that goes out and voluntarily cleans up our waterways. I mean, just, it's incredible. And this community and the volunteerism that we have, I mean, that's how I live my life because of this community. So again, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I want to continue to support, is volunteerism and keeping Venice charming.
Time for questions from the audience. First of all, this is quick. Just raise your hand if you want downtown Venice to look like downtown Sarasota. Anybody? Good, me either. We'll start right here.
I live out off of Venice Avenue, and I have 2 questions about whether anybody is doing anything or thinking about this. One, Venice Avenue Bridge, Middle Bridge, is 2 lanes wide. Everything is 4 lanes on both sides. I know it's a state, federal, United Nations issue, I'm sure. But is anybody thinking about it? Second, from up in Indiana, we have facade grants. I think they're federally supported. I don't know if they can be done here. But I would like to go out.
We don't want to be Indiana either.
Well, I moved down here for a reason. But my point is, it wouldn't be too difficult to go east on Venice from the bridge and do facade grants to make many of those buildings look more like downtown Venice does.
So you want to answer the
Venetian
question or the other?
Oh, I'll take both. What the heck?
It's pretty much federal, state. They can't change the bridge by themselves. They can ask. It'll be 10 years.
So just tying in with everything you said, housing, beautification, all that, nobody mentioned about the homeless.
Okay. Anybody have a homeless opinion?
We do have a homeless problem. I asked when I was going around talking to the various department heads in the city what the city does for homeless, and I was told that they defer to the county on that and don't have any plan of their own. I don't know whether there needs to be more discussion about that and what the city can do to help, but don't deny that there is a problem with homeless downtown. As I walk around, not only do you see them on Venice Avenue and at the restrooms in Centennial Park, but down by the train station, they sleep against the wall, they sleep in the woods near there. Don't let anybody say there isn't a homeless problem. Obviously, it's not San Francisco, but we do have a problem. We do need to address it, and I do think City Council needs to be talking with the county more about what can we do, how can we help, what can we do together.
I met with Chief Thorpe, and I'm talking about a lot of different things. We talked about the homeless as well, and we don't have a program. However, that they work with the county services, depending on what's wrong with the individual, if they're just purely homeless or they have special needs or whatever's causing this individual to live in the street. So I think we need to do more of that, get more active with that. I don't know if that's something that the city assumes, but I think certainly more involvement with the county level and with the hospitals that treat those people if there's medical conditions tied with them being homeless.
You're looking at a product of homelessness. At 16, my mom kicked me out. I wasn't a good kid. So I have a lot of passion for them. I help them out a lot whenever I can. There is the family promise that I mentioned earlier with the cabins. That's basically to try to get homeless families off the streets. You could incorporate something like Sarasota Police where they help the veterans. I'm a veteran. I love the fact that they go out and they try to help a lot of my fellow veterans off the street. They'll talk to them. They try to give them guidance and help. You're right. We don't see a lot of that here at all. The FHP, and I don't even know, Miss Dieter might know better. They were supposed to repurpose it when that lease ended, and that was going to become a homeless facility. I don't know where that's at, though. So ideas like that, it's next. So any ideas like that where you can maybe work with an NGO, I'm all for it. NGO, non-government organization, and the city of Venice, if we can work with them. It's going to involve our big sister, brother, whatever you want to call them, the county, because they hold a lot of the purse strings.
So one thing a lot of people don't know is that we actually do have members of our law enforcement community that serve on what's called the HOT, and that's the Homeless Outreach Team. So their job is basically to go out and track the homeless and try to identify who's kind of our recurring individuals out there that we're trying to help, and whether it's mental health related issues, or just simply homelessness, and get them into an organization like Family Promise, who partners with churches and different organizations, just like Frankie said, NGOs, that provide some kind of opportunity for them to come off the street so that they don't become a product of something worse, like crime or something like that. So there already is a system in place, and over time we've been doing small things as a municipality, which, kind of like we were talking about, we depend on our other brothers and sisters in the government to kind of help with the bigger purse strings, but we did just pass an ordinance about environmental sheltering, providing them a place to go so that they can get out of cold and hot weather, certain things like that we as a city can partner with local entities to do. Those are things that I think is appropriate for municipality to do. It is a larger issue that I know we'd all love to solve, but at the same time, as a municipality, we are very limited in what we can do, and we're doing what I feel we can, but we're always going to continue to combat that problem and address it as best we can.
I would just add to that the county, on behalf of the cities, pays for 250 beds at the Salvation Army. We pay for them for people who are homeless who don't want to follow the rules, because Salvation Army makes you be clean, and they're not. So our 250 beds, cops can go up to the homeless and say, we have a bed for you. You don't even have to be clean, it's one of ours, and you have a place to sleep, and it's up to them to say yes or no. There's a federal law that says you can't arrest people for being homeless unless you have a place to offer them, and we have a place to offer them. So the main chore is to try to help people who want the help. Not, it's harder for people who don't want the help. They have other issues, and we work on those too. Anybody else have a final question? Then we'll let each candidate say something nice about themselves.
I love her.
Starting from left to right, if I could, since you're the newbies, could you tell me what the Burt Harris Private Property Rights Act of 1995 is, and how that would influence your decision making?
I hate when I have to answer all the questions. That's kind of unfair, you know that.
When they keep property rights.
Yes.
It's a big hindrance to development.
You can make a 1-minute statement, because I'd like you to have time for a wrap up. Bert Harris?
Yeah, what's Bert Harris Act? That's like the third time I've been asked.
Okay, I don't know. Bert, you want to say something about the Bert Harris Act of 1995? And you can throw in the LDRs while you're at it, and you have 1 minute.
So basically, that is one of the biggest challenges as a city councilman. Is there are legal rights that each property owner has, and we tread very carefully while we're trying to keep things compatible with the quaint and charming town of Venice. There are state laws that permit homeowners, landowners, to do what they want with their property. So that's one of those things where when people think we can just stop development, that's why we can't. There are certain statutes that prevent us from just taking people's rights away from them and telling them what they can and can't do with their property. So.
Yeah, Bert Harris, property rights, and it's a huge hindrance for the cities and county probably too. A lot of individuals, because the developer can come in and basically get their way. I think our $1 million suit we lost against Neil not too long ago was involving that, I believe, if memory serves me right. So it's a huge hindrance. The other issue too is, besides the Bert Harris, a lot of individuals think that if Nick wins, if I win, if any of these two individuals win, that we can end all development. It's not going to happen. You have 7 members on there, 7 votes. So I might be for controlled development. I might say, no, you can't do this. If the other 6 vote me down, I'm out of luck. If Bert Harris gets in the way, I might be out of luck. And that's when we turn to Kelly Fernandez and say, what's the legality of this? Do we have a case if we move forward? And she'll direct us.
I can't add a lot more to that. I mean, Bert Harris it's property rights for the owners, and they have a right to do what they want to do with their property. And if it's within the regulations, the guidelines, the LDRs, you said I could use that acronym again, Senator? Yeah, the LDRs, then they have the right to do what they want to do with that property, and it is a huge hindrance, and it ties the hands of anything that you want to do as a council member differently than what they want to do.
The property owners only have certain rights. There's a thing called height by right, where the council doesn't have any say if they want to build up to that height, but they don't have the right to go beyond that without a council vote. That's special exception. So it doesn't have hands tied behind the back in pushing back against the developer. We still have some say.
Well, I'll tell you, what is it?
Do you support the airport?
Okay, that's too long. We've got to give them time to give a wrap up. Thank you for all of you for being here. While many of us don't live in the city, we're affected by the city, and we love the city, even if we're not city residents, and we support the city. So whoever gets elected is very important to all of us. So since we have to all get back to our low-paying jobs so we can afford our high-value homes, let's have you each say why you think you're the best candidate in about 3 minutes each. And be sure to say your names, because at this point in proceedings, they might like you, and we weren't even nice enough to give you a name tag, so be sure to state your name.
I'm Ron Smith, and I'm asking for your vote for Venice City Council seat number 5. I believe that I'm a problem solver. I was trained by the Supreme Court in mediating disputes. My philosophy is that you have to approach each problem the way that we tackle a crossword puzzle, a Sudoku, or a Rubik's Cube. You need to start with the belief that there is an answer, there is a solution, and then you need to work it until you get there. I stand for respecting people's differences and coming to agreement through civil discourse. There are no problems in this city that we can't solve if we approach it that way. I'd like to bring that skill to the city council so that we don't have 1,200 people signing petitions or, people trying to put things in a referendum. I spoke to the city council about 10 days ago and urged them to negotiate, not litigate, to settle this matter in the boardroom, not in a courtroom. We don't ever need to see a referendum on these issues. They brought a very small collection of concerns to the city. The city manager has met with them. I was urging the council to direct the city manager to continue to meet with them. Those people leading the drive have told me that they want to negotiate a solution. The council needs to see that a solution is brought about, and we don't have a referendum that ties us up and costs us a lot of money, and we shouldn't be suing against our own citizens. Thank you.
If you guys haven't picked up on this, I'm not a professional politician. I'm a businessman. I've spent 30 years running a huge business unit in corporate America, working for the man, as they call it. I feel like that this building height, it's going to resolve itself. I don't disagree with Ron from the aspect. I prefer it not get to referendum, because I think it can be, if there's 100 miles of regulation, this is a 7 feet problem that I think that the city hall or the council and the folks that are upset can resolve without going through all this other stuff. Again, back to my business background, what I think I bring to the city, actually I know what I bring to the city, is tax relief. And what does that look like? Is it making sure that our expenses are in line? There's some subtle differences between the private and public, but financials are financials, and there's certain things that jump out at me. When I look at the financials, I scratch my head. Things like, I would expect to see 45% of my expenses in my annual operating budget running 45%. In the city, it's 75%. 75% of the budget is labor. Maybe that's right, but I want to make sure that that's right. I want to look at all the expense lines. I said this earlier, I care about the city, I care about the charm. I think the building height, the LDRs, all of that stuff falls under that environment header, in my opinion. And I think I hate to use the word given because it sounds like I'm minimizing it, but I can tell you, again, there's nobody in this room that's going to vote to do anything with building heights or change the downtown or Venice when it comes to development. None of us is going to support that.
And your name again?
Thanks, Frankie. Rick Howard. I'm running for Venice City Council, seat number 5.
Okay, Frankie Abbruzzino, Frankie for Mayor of Venice.com, go there. I have a lot of things that are on there. I discuss many issues, and mine is more asking questions because I don't have all the answers. Some of the issues I have, home values. If you look at home valuations, I think it brought in just over an extra $1 million in the budget last year. We're 1% higher, we're 0.9 to 1% higher than the city of Venice, city of Northport, and the county. And so I ask questions about that. What are we doing with the money? Can we lower it? You know, I look around, I've been, as a scoop, before I decided I was going to run, I was meeting with the city employees. And I've noticed a lot of upset employees, a lot of very unhappy employees, a lot of openings. And I saw an HR department really not wanting to give them much of a raise in terms of inflation. And so I look at that, I look at the salaries of our top level executives, and I wonder what's the disconnect. And if you go to my page, you'll see I ask a lot of questions on these various issues and where I stand. There's too many of them to cover in here in 3 minutes. So remember, Frankie Abbruzzino, Frankie for Mayor of Venice.com.
Nick Pashota, and running for mayor here in Venice, Nick for Venice, FOR.com. You know, it's home. That's what this is all about to me, right? $10,000 a year, come on, right? So I'm doing this because I want to protect what I've come to know and love as a child. I had a dream, you know, long time ago when I was a kid and I was on the youth advisory board. I got to work with the mayor and the city council, and they coached us on how to run a board and what was involved in government. And ever since then, I've always wanted to give that back to my community. And that's why I'm here, that's why I'm running again, is to support you guys and take care of you guys and make sure that we keep you safe, that we don't waste your tax dollars, and that we keep Venice nice and charming. I mean, that's why we live here. We live in paradise, and we're a very fortunate community of civil people that volunteer their time. I mean, just imagine how many positions we saved the city because of our volunteerism here. And that's why I serve. That's why I continue to serve other civic organizations. So please vote for me for mayor, nickforvenice.com. Nick Pashota.
Thank you all. Before we end, we'll get to this lady's question. Raise your hand if you support keeping the airport where it is.
That's not the question.
All right, what is?
Do you support the airport? It won't move. It has to stay there.
Do we support? It's the same thing.
It's one of our major revenue generators. I support it. The hotel's going on there. It's a done deal.
Okay.
So yes.
Thank you. Thank you all for running for office. We appreciate you. I think you were very informative. Let's give them a big round of applause.